because ultimately this is about attacking democracy. They want to stop the voters from voting for Donald Trump. It is dangerous.
Some headlines blasting the ruling include Trump's $355 million civil fraud verdict. The judge found he inflated his assets, but this penalty is unreal. Another warns Dem elites shouldn't be laughing at.
You've just seen a sneak peek of the latest segment from Fox News. Stay tuned because we'll show the full clip at the end of this video. Before we get to that, we want to share our perspective on the topic. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content similar to this. We're eager to see your opinions in the comments section below, and we'll be sure to reply. The recent legal action against Donald Trump has certainly been a flashpoint for controversy, driving a stark divide between supporters and critics. In my view, as a supporter of the former president, the narrative presented by the New York legal system seems to betray a lack of substantive justice. The rhetoric around the case has been less about the rule of law and more about the pursuit of a high-profile individual for political points. The lawsuit against Trump, which has resulted in a $355 million civil fraud verdict, is a clear example of the politicization of the legal system. For instance, the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, made it a point of her campaign to target Trump, thus raising questions about impartiality from the outset. This is crucial because the rule of law depends on an equitable and unbiased approach to justice, not one that seeks reelection through the vilification of select individuals. Moreover, the absence of any formal victims in this case is highly unusual. Normally, fraud cases involve a defrauded party, often someone who has experienced financial loss due to deception. Yet in Trump's case, there are no banks or financial institutions claiming to have been misled or harmed. This begs the question, who is the victim that justifies such an exorbitant sum in damages? Furthermore, the punitive aspect of the verdict seems quite disproportionate. Almost $500 million in damages, without accounting for any real financial harm done to victims, can appear more as an act of legal retribution rather than a balanced response. This situation, in the eyes of Trump supporters, could be seen as a deliberate attempt to weaken Trump's financial standing and, by extension, his political influence. Former President Trump's criticism that this verdict might spur an exodus of businesses from New York should not be dismissed lightly. Beyond his own case, there is an underlying message about the potential for punitive legal practices to scare away business and stifle economic growth. It's no surprise that the court's decision has been framed as a win for a victimless crime, and it's a framing that I, alongside many other Americans, question. It's important that the appellate courts take a deep and considered look into the evidence and procedures of the initial trial. Jurisprudence should calibrate the balance between punitive measures and the absence of quantifiable harm with careful consideration. In conclusion, the legal system's integrity depends on its neutrality and objectivity. When cases start to appear as though they stem from a place of political vendetta, everyone is at a loss. The defendant, the public's trust in the justice system, and the principle of fairness. The hope now rests with the higher courts to reassess the proportionality and fairness of this controversial ruling.
Because ultimately this is about attacking democracy. They want to stop the voters from voting for Donald Trump. It is dangerous.
Some headlines blasting the ruling include Trump's $355 million civil fraud verdict. The judge found he inflated his assets, but this penalty is unreal. Another warns Dem elites shouldn't be laughing at Trump's civil trial outcome. They just made him a political martyr. And Jonathan Turley argues the obscene award against Trump is testing the New York legal system's integrity. Quote, the one hope for New York businesses may be the U.S. Supreme Court. Despite the deference afforded to the states and the courts, the court has occasionally intervened to block excessive damage awards. The court may find almost $500 million in damages without a single lost dollar from a victim to be a tad excessive. What say you on that, Tom?
Well, I think a lot of Americans are looking at what happened here and have very legitimate questions. For one thing, as you note, the district attorney or the attorney general of New York began her campaign by saying she was going to get Donald Trump. She then brought a case which was very unusual. Not that prosecutions or claims under the statute are unusual, but they are unusual when you don't really have a victim. You don't have a bank coming forward and saying, hey, we were defrauded here. So there's the absence of that. Then the judgment itself of what will ultimately be with interest more than $400 million. I think causes a lot of people to look and say, hey, look, this is a quote unquote victimless crime. No one is saying they were hurt by this. And yet you tag former President Trump with a sanction that could be close to $500 million by the time the dust settles. I think that the courts of appeals, they're now going to get this case. And I think they will take a very close look at the trial record, the evidence, in determining whether a sanction of this magnitude is
really
warranted.
Interesting analysis on that. Former President Trump, I want to get this in, meanwhile, says New York businesses are going to bolt Tom after his fraud trial ruling. Governor Kathy Hochul responded with this.
The law-abiding and rule-following New Yorkers who are business people have nothing to worry about because they're very different than Donald Trump and his behavior.
Or maybe they do have something to worry about, Tom.
Well, I think the worry is that if you're a business in New York, you could get in the crosshairs of an attorney general who, again, campaigns for office on the theory that she's going to get certain people and get defendants. And look, if you're not one of them, then maybe you're okay. But if you have the misfortune to be in her crosshairs when she's making these campaign political promises to get you, that's a lot of uncertainty and not something that a lot of businesses in New York would like to have.
So many ways to look at it. Tom Dupree, as always, thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.